I was a field medic in the Great War, trained at a hospital in Manchester before shipping out in early 1915. 22 years old, full of purpose. I thought I'd be saving lives, you see. Thought I'd make a difference. My mother was so proud when I told her. Her son helping the boys at the front. They didn't tell us in training what most of our job would actually be. Oh, they taught us how to bandage wounds, how to splint broken bones, how to treat gas exposure. But nobody taught us the real skill we'd need most, writing last letters. I learned my letters as a boy, same as anyone. Wrote to my sweetheart before the war, wrote to my family. Normal things. The weather's fine. I miss you. See you soon. Simple words for simple times. But at the front, in those aid stations just behind the lines, I became something else. A scribe for the dying. A translator of final words. Most of the lads couldn't write, you see. Farm boys, factory workers, laborers, they could sign their names maybe, but not much more. And even the ones who could write, well, when you're bleeding out in the mud, your hands don't work so well. The first time was at Ypres in 15, spring offensive. We'd set up the aid station in what used to be a farmhouse, just a shell now. No roof, half the walls gone. But it was cover, and that's all that mattered. The wounded started coming in around dawn. Stretcher bearers running, stumbling, sometimes crawling with their burdens. We worked fast. Triage, that's what they call it. Deciding who might live and who's already gone. You learn to tell the difference quick. This kid comes in. Can't have been more than 18. Shrapnel had torn through his gut. I knew right away. We all knew. There's a certain look to belly wounds, a certain smell. You can't fix them, not out there, not with what we had. I gave him morphine, made him comfortable as I could, and then he grabbed my sleeve. I can't die without telling her, he said. His name was Private James Cooper, from Cornwall. My Mary, she's waiting for me. Can you write it down? I had a notebook, kept it in my coat pocket. Also kept a pencil, though the lead broke constantly from all the shelling. My hands were bloody, his blood, but I wrote. Dear Mary, he said. His voice was fading already, the morphine or the dying or both. I'm thinking of you. I'm always thinking of you. He stopped, breathed hard. I waited. Tell her. Tell her I was brave. Tell her it didn't hurt. Tell her I love her. None of it was true. He wasn't brave. He was terrified. It hurt like hell until the morphine kicked in, but I wrote it anyway. What else could I do? He died before I finished. I dated it, sealed it, put her address on the envelope, sent it off with the chaplain that evening. That was the first. There would be hundreds more. You stop remembering their faces after a while. There's too many. But you remember the words. God help me. I remember every word. The Somme was the worst. July through November, 1916. We worked in shifts around the clock. The aid station was overwhelmed, constantly, wounded everywhere, screaming, begging, dying. The smell of blood and shit and gangrene. The flies. Jesus, the flies. I wrote letters in between the bandaging, the amputations, the holding down of men while the surgeon cut. My notebook filled up. I got another, then another. Some of the letters were simple. Tell Mum I love her. Take care of Dad. I'm sorry. Others were longer, more complicated. Private Henry Walsh wanted me to write to his wife about their daughter, the one he'd never met, born while he was at the front. Tell Annie to raise her right. Tell her to show little Margaret my picture. Tell her I tried to come home. He was crying when he said it. I was writing so fast, my hand cramped. Corporal Davies wanted to confess something, an affair before he enlisted. Wanted his wife to know, wanted forgiveness. I wrote it. Every awful word. What was I supposed to do? Refuse a dying man? Some couldn't speak clearly. Gas cases, throat wounds, men in shock. They'd whisper fragments, and I'd try to piece together something coherent. Something their mothers or wives or children could read without completely falling apart. I learned to lie beautifully. Learned to make dying in the mud sound peaceful. Learned to make terror sound like courage. Learned to turn screams into, "He went quietly, and he didn't suffer." The worst ones were the young lads asking me to lie about their age. 16, 17 years old, lied to enlist. Don't tell Mum how old I really am. She'll be so angry. Just tell her I was brave. I wrote it. I always wrote it. At night, when the shelling quieted enough to think, I'd look at my hands, stained with blood and ink. Couldn't tell which was which anymore. Couldn't tell where the living ended and the dead began. Passchendaele in 17. The mud there was different, deeper. Men drowned in it. We pulled them out when we could, but mostly we couldn't. The aid station was a tent that kept collapsing in the rain. We worked in the muck, everything soaked, everything filthy. The letters kept coming. Had to write them in the rain sometimes. The paper would run, the ink would smear. I'd have to start over. Some boys died before I could finish. I'd complete the letters anyway. Seemed wrong not to. I started recognizing patterns. The young ones always wanted to tell their mothers they loved them. The married men wanted to be remembered by their children. The ones with sweethearts wanted to promise they'd wait for them in heaven or whatever we go to after this. Nobody ever wanted to tell the truth. Nobody ever wanted me to write, "I died screaming in agony," or "I'm terrified of what comes next," or "This was all for nothing." So I didn't write that. I wrote what they needed me to write. The lies that would let their families sleep at night. The stories that would let them grieve without going mad. I met another medic who did the same thing. Robertson, Scottish fellow. We'd share cigarettes when we could and compare our notebooks. He had 3 full ones by then. I had 4. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? We both knew what we were. The scribes of the slaughter, poets of the dying, liars for the dead. Robertson caught it in a gas attack in early 18. Mustard gas. Burned his lungs out. I held his hand while he died. He couldn't speak by then, couldn't breathe right. But he looked at me and I knew what he wanted. I wrote to his sister in Edinburgh. Told her he spoke of her at the end. Told her he wasn't afraid. Told her it was quick. All lies. But kind lies, the only mercy left. I stopped being able to write my own letters home sometime in 1918. My mother would write to me, asking how I was, telling me about life in Manchester. I couldn't answer. What could I tell her? That I spent my days transcribing the final words of dying boys. That I'd become numb to it. That I'd written so many condolence letters I could do it in my sleep. The breaking point came in August. We were near Amiens. The big push. The one that was supposed to end it. More wounded than ever. More dying than ever. More letters. This one boy. I don't even remember his name anymore. And that haunts me. He couldn't have been more than 17. Caught a shell fragment in the chest. Sucking chest wound. I knew he had minutes. "Write to my girl," he said. "Sarah, tell her." He stopped, stared at the canvas ceiling of the tent. The light was coming through holes from shrapnel, little spots of brightness in the gloom. "Tell her what?" I asked. My pencil was ready. I'd done this hundreds of times by then. "I don't know," he said. And then he laughed, this horrible, wet, bubbling laugh. "I don't know what to tell her. What's the point? She'll marry someone else, someone who came home. Why am I even here? Why are any of us here?" I couldn't answer. I just sat there with my pencil and paper while he bled out, asking questions I'd been asking myself for 3 years. He died still asking. I wrote the letter anyway. Made up something about love and courage and not being afraid. Signed it with his name from his identification disc. Sent it off. That night I burned my notebook. Well, tried to. It was too damp. Just smoldered and smoked. I kept it in the end. Kept all of them. Couldn't bring myself to destroy the last words of all those boys, even if they weren't really their words at all. The war ended in November 1918. I came home to Manchester in January 1919. My mother cried when she saw me. Said I looked older. I was 26, but I felt ancient. I kept the notebooks, all 7 of them, hundreds of letters to mothers, wives, sweethearts, children, hundreds of lies told with the best intentions, hundreds of boys reduced to a few sentences in my cramped, blood-stained handwriting. I tried to go back to normal life. Got a job at a hospital, ward clerk, paperwork. But I couldn't do it. Every time I picked up a pen, I'd think of those letters. Every time I wrote something down, I'd remember whose blood had been on my hands while I wrote. I started drinking. That helped for a while. Dulled the memories, made the faces fade. But they always came back, especially at night. I'd dream about them. All those boys, all those last words, all those lies. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking I heard them calling for me. Medic, medic, write to my mum. I'd reach for my notebook before I remembered where I was. When I was. I never married. How could I? What would I tell a wife about what I'd done? How I'd spent 4 years writing pretty lies about ugly deaths. How I'd become a professional liar for the dead. The worst part is, I know the families treasured those letters. I'd see them sometimes in the newspaper. Our beloved son's last words, written from the battlefield. They'd frame them, pass them down, build their grief around those few sentences I'd scribbled in the mud while their sons bled out. They never knew. They never knew it was all lies, that their boys died screaming or crying or begging or sometimes just silent, surprised by death, too shocked to say anything at all. I wonder sometimes if I did the right thing, if the lies were mercy or just another cruelty, if I helped those families or just built their grief on a foundation of falsehoods. It's 1955 now. I'm 62 years old. The boys I wrote for would be in their 50s and 60s too, if they'd lived. Instead, they're forever young in those letters, forever brave, forever at peace. I still have the notebooks. Can't throw them away, can't bear to read them. They sit in a box in my flat. The last evidence of all those boys who died thinking someone would remember their final words. But those weren't their final words. Their final words were screams, or prayers, or mum, or nothing at all. What I wrote, that was just what I thought they wanted to say. What I thought their families needed to hear. I was a medic in the Great War. I saved some lives. But mostly, I just wrote letters for the dying. Made their deaths mean something. Made them bearable for the ones left behind. People thank me sometimes when they find out what I did. They say I gave those families comfort, closure, a piece of their boys to hold on to. They don't understand. I didn't give them their boys. I gave them ghosts. Beautiful, brave ghosts that never existed. The real boys. The terrified, dying boys. Those boys are buried in France and Belgium and all across the scarred earth of that war. And part of me is buried with them. The part that believed words mattered. The part that thought truth was sacred. That part died somewhere in the mud, drowned in blood and ink. I survived the war, but I never came home. None of us did. We left something behind in those trenches that we could never get back. For me, it was the belief that words could save anyone, that truth mattered more than comfort. Now I know better. Now I know that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is lie. Tell them it didn't hurt. Tell them he was brave. Tell them he thought of home at the end. Even if he didn't, even if he couldn't, even if the last thing he felt was just surprise that this was how it ended. That's what I learned from the Great War. That's what I brought home with me, along with those 7 notebooks full of beautiful lies. The dead don't need the truth. They're past caring. But the living need something to hold on to, even if it's false, especially if it's false. I gave them that. I gave them their beautiful, brave ghosts, and I kept the truth locked away in my notebooks and in my memory and in the part of me that never left the aid stations of France. Some men came home with missing limbs, some with ruined lungs. I came home with missing pieces of my soul. You can't see them, can't bandage them, can't fix them. I was a medic in the Great War, and I've been dying ever since, one remembered letter at a time. God forgive me for the lies I wrote, and God forgive me for the truth I kept.